Is that all right? Can you hear me now? Yes. I'm confusing the poor cameraman. I was here, and then the next day I was there, and then I'm back here again. The reason I was there yesterday was that yesterday's thing was a little subtle, and it's important to listen to me carefully and have that one-on-one contact as far as possible in order to transmit. One of the professors at Harvard 2 years ago, I remember he said in the class, he's the senior most philosophy professor, Goldfarb at Harvard. He was teaching Wittgenstein. Quite the opposite of all the modern technologies which are available. He said the PowerPoint and the website with assignments and structure of the course. He has none of that. He says, come to the class, listen to me, and look at me. And he told a story about his student days when he was reading a philosophy text and he couldn't understand what was said there. And he went to the class and he listened to the teacher, then he understood. Which is a very ancient insight we have in the Vedas. That Shravana, directly from a teacher, is very powerful. Om Namah Shri Yatirajaya Vivekananda Suraye Satchid Sukha Swarupaya Swami Netapaharine. I offer my pranams to revered Swami Shantatmanji Maharaj, pranams to the revered monks and Matajis, namaskars to the brahmacharis, all of you visitors here today, lovers of Vedanta. What we have been doing in these 3 days is the first 2 days were devoted to a presentation of classical Advaita Vedanta based on the Taittiriya Upanishad and Shankaracharya's commentary thereupon, where we learned what is the ultimate reality according to Advaita Vedanta, according to the Upanishads, but in the Advaitic interpretation. Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. Infinite existence consciousness is Brahman. And it was demonstrated. What does it mean? What is infinity? Those who have attended, And also pointed out to us, directly in our experience, this ocean of existence, our life is basically unlimited ocean of awareness. That is Brahman, and you are that reality. How do you realize it? The method in Advaita Vedanta is the method of inquiry, vichara. Why inquiry? Because the thing that we are trying to discover, to realize, is already available to us. It doesn't require a physical journey. You don't have to go anywhere to get it. It doesn't even require waiting in time. You don't have to wait till the end of your life, to get it, or sometime. You don't have to wait for that. You don't have to go anywhere, to anything, because it's you yourself. And there is no difference in desha, kala, vastu, time, space, object. But then what is the problem? What kind of spiritual journey is Advaita Vedanta? The problem is ignorance. It's there, but we don't get it. It's not obvious to us. This not getting it is ignorance. And this journey from ignorance to knowledge, ignorance of the self to knowledge of the self, this is the spiritual journey. Now this knowledge will always come through inquiry. And that's why Advaita Vedanta is primarily the path of inquiry, vichara. I'm leaving many things unsaid. There is a role of meditation and devotion and karma yoga, selfless action. Without that, this is not possible, this kind of inquiry and its culmination. But having said all of that, I am reminded of what Sister Nivedita wrote in her masterful introduction to the complete works of Swami Vivekananda. The first volume you will find that introduction. It's really worth reading, 3 or 4 pages. Very insightful. It's like a key which opens Swami Vivekananda to us. There she says, undoubtedly what Swami Vivekananda taught was Vedanta in India and in the West. But then she goes on to say, it was all there. This is the ancient spiritual heritage of India. 5,000 years of quiet spiritual development, the culmination And that was transmitted by Vivekananda across the world. And in the But, she says, even if Vivekananda had not come, all that would have still been true. Upanishads would have still been there. Satyam Jnanam Anantam would have been there. Panchakosha Vichara would have been there. All that we did yesterday and day before yesterday, it would have been there exactly like that if Vivekananda had not come. Maybe Vivekananda expressed it with a rare power and rare eloquence. That's there. The infused power and into it. But it would have, the knowledge would have been there. Very much so. So what is unique about Vivekananda? What did Swami Vivekananda do with Vedanta, with classical Advaita Vedanta? The extensions, the development, the new presentation. That's what we are going to talk about. The impact on society, on religion, on science, on ethics, all of these areas of life, that's what we're going to talk about. That's the compass of our discussion this evening. Sister Nivedita goes on to write that there's this teaching that the one and the many are the same reality, seen by different spiritual seekers at different levels of spiritual development. Or maybe the same spiritual seeker at different levels of spiritual development, of spiritual journey. You see that the one and the many are the same reality. I'll explain what it means. Then she goes on to say, this is the crowning significance of the teaching of Swami Vivekananda. So what we saw as classical Advaita Vedanta, that's there. But what he added was this one and the many are the same reality seen by different spiritual seekers or the same spiritual seeker at different levels in different spiritual experiences. What does it mean and how is it important? Why is this the crowning teaching, the significance of Swami Vivekananda's teaching? That's what we will explore today. Sri Ramakrishna used to say this again and again. This is basically what she is saying, one and the many are the same reality. Sri Ramakrishna used to say, Jadi Nitto Tadi Leela. That Nitya, that ultimate reality. And this universe is the Leela of that eternal reality, that absolute reality. Notice what a big statement that is. What did we do yesterday and day before yesterday? We left all of this behind. Neti Neti. And we reached Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma, and I am that reality. Aham Brahmasmi. But all of what we left behind, you remember, Savikaratva, Drishyatva, Jadatva, I am not body, not the prana, not the mind, and of course not the external world. But all of this is the Leela of that Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. Sri Ramakrishna goes on to say further that as you climb through the staircase of a house, you leave the first ground floor behind, you climb up the staircase, the first floor, the staircase is left behind, you go to the roof of the house, and then at the roof, what you find the roof is made of, the same bricks and cement and mortar, and you find when you look back, the whole house is made of the same thing. So what he means to say is, when you realize the absolute, then you look back. Jivan Mukta will always appear back in this world. And what you see in this world is exactly that. So, Sri Ramakrishna put it even more simply. In Bengali, chok bando korle tini achen, chok khulle tini nahi, ye kemon Bhagavan. If I close my eyes, the Lord is there, God is there, I find God within. If I open my eyes, God is not there. What kind of God is this? Just by opening the eyes, God will disappear. What he means is, this is the same Brahman, which you realize by Neti Neti. And then having realized that, when you come back into the experience of, what is the first thing? Anandamaya Kosha, then Vijnanamaya Kosha, then Manomaya Kosha, Pranamaya Kosha, Annamaya Kosha, external world, same Brahman. See, yesterday we left it behind. Not Annamaya, not Pranamaya, not Manomaya, not Vijnanamaya, not Anandamaya. But now, Sri Ramakrishna is saying all of them are none other than that. But first you must realize, having understood what gold is, then you look at all the display. In New York there is this Tiffany's jewelry shop. Having understood what gold is, when you look at the display of gold jewelry, you find all of it is that. The gold itself is the necklace, is the crown, is the ring, is the bracelet, and so on. So this idea, Sri Ramakrishna used to call it Vijnani, the avasthava Vijnani. Some have realized, some have just heard what Brahman is, but some have seen it. He gives the example of milk. Some have heard about milk, but some have seen it. But there are others who have drunk the milk and been satisfied and strengthened by it. So this the last part, is the extension which Swami Vivekananda does, to be nourished by that realization, not only us, not only you and I, but everybody in society. The whole of society is nourished by this Advaitic idea. This is the amazing extension. Why am I saying extension? Because there's a whole controversy here. Did Sri Ramakrishna and Swami Vivekananda deviate from classical Advaita Vedanta? We cannot allow that. Too bad. But on the other hand, did they say exactly what Shankara has said, and what is the need for Vivekananda and Ramakrishna and Ma Sharada to come at all? New and old. So have they deviated? In this, let me just add a little bit. In the West, if it is not new, it's not appreciated. In India, if you deviate from the source, it's not appreciated. The truth has come down from the Upanishads. I'm talking about philosophy and spirituality. So where we discussed this was in the Indian philosophy class, classical Buddhist philosophy class at Harvard University. Now I was the only Indian there, but the rest were all Americans. And the professor started with the scolding. He knew the mentality of the students there. He said, don't let me hear, when we study this Buddhism, don't let me hear, oh, these are just commentaries on what Buddha said. Nothing new. Because there the interest is, Buddha did not know anything. He was a Buddhu. I am telling you the truth now. Then people will say, oh, please tell us. In India, it's the opposite. That what the master has said, we write commentary, sub-commentary, bhashya, vartika, tika, tippani, and all that. So he showed that even in the commentary, sub-commentary tradition of India, a new thing can be said. It's just said with a very polite way. That what the Bhashyakara, Bhagavan Shankaracharya, has said in his omniscience, it is a product of his extraordinary intelligence. That's the sub-commentary is saying that. It's actually an insult. Because it means the Upanishad did not say it. The great commentator out of his own intelligence has invented it. But that's a way of saying something new. Right? And on the other hand, in the Western tradition, when you say that what my professor and his professor and all the other philosophers before him, they were all totally wrong, and I'm giving you something new. The professor who was teaching, he says, often what this new thing is not at all that new. It's entirely based on what others have said, just a little change here and there, often worthless. So, that's why I'm saying what Sri Ramakrishna, Swami Vivekananda have done is, Swamiji especially, is an extension. It's not in any way a sharp deviation from Upanishadic tradition, even from the classical Advaita Vedanta tradition. But definitely there is newness there. There is novelty there. There is contemporary relevance here. All right, let me jump into it. We'll take up several issues one after another. First, Advaita Vedanta itself. According to Vivekananda and Sri Ramakrishna, of course, that Advaita Vedanta, Vishishta Advaita Vedanta, and Dvaita Vedanta, and all the other schools of Vedanta, are a development of the same stream of thought and in spiritual insight which have come from the Upanishads. They are not contradictory. It's not that one is right or the others are false. You might say, who says that? 1,000 years of philosophical debate in India says that. If you look at the texts of Advaita Vedanta post-Shankara, tremendous attacks on the Advaitic interpretation of the Upanishads. Ramanujacharya, which is, he treated Advaita Vedanta, the Shankara and post-Shankara interpretations of the Upanishads, as Mahapurva Paksha, the great opponent. And then he cuts it down. Analytical attack on Advaita Vedanta, especially he knows the weak link. What is the weak link? The concept of Maya. So he attacks Saptadha Anupapatti, sevenfold objections to Maya. So then there are replies from the Advaitic side. Then comes Madhvacharya, the Advaita Vedanta master, and his followers, sharp logicians. If you think Advaita Vedanta is analytical and based on reasoning, you should read Madhvacharya's and his followers, their attacks on Advaita. Very intricate, very subtle dialectics, devastating for Advaita Vedanta. Then other Advaitins like Madhusudan Saraswati, they had to come. The attack is mostly on the Advaita idea of the falsity of the world. Then you will find for hundreds of years, these philosophers and saints, they were philosopher saints both. They are sadhakas and also thinkers. Those who set out in search of truth, they have spent hundreds of years discussing falsity. And Madhusudan Saraswati's masterpiece, Advaita Siddhi, first line, Nanu kimidam mithyatvam yatvam sadhyate. Well, what is this falsity which you try to prove that world is false? And this is actually a quotation from the Advaita Vedanta text, Nyayamrita, just being quoted. And the reply is given. So it's nothing wrong in it. Over the hundreds of years, these philosophies flowered and developed. It was a golden period for Indian philosophy. But it remains a fact. If you go to a classical Advaita teacher, or Vishishta Advaita, or Advaita teacher, or Achintya Bhedavid, they will all tell you, you make up your mind. Advaita teacher will tell you, Advaita Vedanta alone is right, and the others are wrong interpretations of Upanishads. You have to make up your mind. Make up your mind, this one or the others. Yet that's a bit strange. See, if that is so, if the other systems of thought and philosophy are wrong, they have all produced great saints. Nobody doubts that. So by following a wrong philosophy, can you become a great saint, enlightened master? In that case, philosophy is not important. You can follow anything and become enlightened. Or maybe they are not wrong. Maybe they are all right. All of them are right. So Sri Ramakrishna was very fond of this story. Hanuman is asked by Sri Ramachandra, what do you think of me? And Hanuman says, Deha buddhya dasoham, Jiva buddhya twadangshaka, Atma buddhya tu tvamevaham iti me nishchitamati, Mahagyani. Hanuman, he says, as this body, Hanuman, I am the servant, thou art my Lord. You are the master, I am your servant. You are Ramachandra, my master. As a jiva, who in this life is Hanuman, in earlier lives, some other bodies and minds, this sentient being transmigrating from lifetime to lifetime. You are the whole and I am your part. You are Purna, I am your Amsha. And as Atma, Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma, you and I are exactly the same. You are not Ramachandra, I am not Hanuman, we are infinite existence consciousness. Which one is right? Iti me nishchitamati. All of it. First one, you are the master, I am your servant, Advaita Vedanta. Second one, you are the whole, I am your part, Vishishta Advaita Vedanta. Third one, you and I are one reality, one infinite existence, consciousness, bliss, Advaita Vedanta. Which is right? All. But perspective, Deha Buddhya, Jiva Buddhya, Atma Buddhya, from the perspective of body, from the perspective of a sentient being, from the perspective of consciousness. It changes. Of course, if you say that to a hardcore classical Advaitin, you know what the response will be. It actually happened. There was one very strict, very good sadhu, but staunch non-dualist, who came to visit Swami Turiyanandaji, and I have read his own account of. So he's not a member of our order, but very Nath Sampradaya, Yogi Adityanath, so same Sampradaya, he belongs to that. So he asked this question to Turiyanandaji, and Turiyanandaji told this story about Hanuman and Ramchandra. As body, I am your servant, you are my master. As the jiva, I am your part, you are the whole. As consciousness, as Atma, we are one reality, and this is it. All three are right. Then this sadhu, he said, no, you are misinterpreting. This is not the meaning of that shloka. Turiyanandaji was surprised. He said, what is the meaning? He says, Deha buddhya, perspective of body, but body perspective is wrong, it's false. Jiva buddhya, as jiva perspective is wrong. Atma buddhya, as atma, you are atma after all. That's what Advaita Vedanta says. You are not body, not the mind. You are atman. As atman, Ramachandra and I are one and the same. This is what Hanuman wanted to say. Dvaita is wrong, Vishishta Advaita is wrong, Advaita is correct. This is Hanuman's conviction. So, what was Turiyanandaji's reaction? And this sadhu is writing his own reminiscences. He says, Swami Turiyanandaji burst out laughing and he said, well, have it your way. That was, Swami Turiyanandaji was once asked by a great Swami of our order, Sarvanandaji. He wrote a letter. What is Sri Ramakrishna's philosophy? And Swami Turiyanandaji's reply is available. It's a long letter, worth reading, with intricate, subtle discussion. At the end, Swami Turiyanandaji says that if you press me, tell me one thing, Advaita, Vishishta Advaita, Dvaita, or some other thing, which was Sri Ramakrishna's philosophy. One, give me a straight answer. Then Turiyanandaji says in Bengali, Josho kore Bhagavan labh karo. Eti hocche Thakurer darshan. In whatsoever way, realize God as soon as possible. This is the philosophy of Sri Ramakrishna. So an eminently practical philosopher, spiritual and practical philosopher. Now, from this perspective of Sri Ramakrishna, Advaita, Dvaita, Vishishta Advaita, and all the other interpretations of Vedanta are right. They are not false. They are different perspectives, and on that perspective, on each perspective, one philosophy has been constructed. So it's not a question of you have to find out the right one and reject all the others. No. So we are Advaitins in our order. All of us are Advaitins. But we are not Advaitins in the sense of rejecting Vishishta Advaita, Advaita Vedanta. Our home philosophy is Advaita Vedanta. But from that perspective, we can also appreciate Vishishta Advaita and Dvaita Vedanta. One great contemporary philosopher and practitioner of Dvaita Vedanta, Professor Srinivas Bharkhedi. He is actually a vice chancellor of a university. Now, many years ago, I think about 15 years ago, I met him in Belur Math. He gave a very beautiful idea about these systems of philosophy. Dvaita, Vishishta, Advaita, Advaita. He said, if we interrogate the Upanishads, if you ask questions to the Upanishads, 3 questions, you will get 3 different answers. If you ask the Upanishads, what is real and what is unreal, Satya and Mithya, the Upanishads will answer with Advaita Vedanta, Brahma Satyam Jagat Mithya. If you ask, what is the whole and what is the part, Upanishads will answer with Vishishta Advaita Vedanta. Brahman is the whole and Jiva is Amsha, Amshi relationship, Shesha Sheshi relationship. If you ask, what is independent and what is dependent, Swatantra Paratantra, then Upanishads will answer with Dvaita Vedanta. Brahman is Swatantra and Jiva Jagat is Paratantra. 3 different philosophies can emerge from the same texts if you interrogate it differently. It's his own insight. I think it's a beautiful insight. So, from Sri Ramakrishna's perspective, Swami Vivekananda's perspective, this is the first thing that is an extension, a development. Advaita is right, Vishishta Advaita is right, Dvaita is right. They are different. They are unique, and we are not saying they are same. They are different and they are unique, but they are not wrong or mutually exclusive. So this is a very big insight, an extension. Why am I saying extension? Why extension of Advaita Vedanta? Can you not do this from Dvaita or Vishishta Advaita? You can't actually. It's only after the Advaitic realization, the Advaitic understanding, Brahma Satyam Jagat Mithya Jiva Brahmaiva Napara, then you can further extend it from an Advaitic perspective into this new perspective, an expanded perspective from which you can see the rightness of Dvaita and Vishishta Advaita and all the other systems. From a Vishishta Advaitic system, you cannot do it. Why not? From a Vishishta Advaita perspective, Advaita Vedanta is simply wrong. They will not be able to accept Advaita Vedanta. From Advaita perspective, Advaita Vedanta is simply wrong. They will not be able to accept Advaita Vedanta. This Nirguna Brahman is not accepted at all. But from an Advaitic perspective, what they do is, Nirguna Brahman is the ultimate reality, but the reality that Vishishta Advaita and Dvaita speak about, Saguna Brahman, is Vyavaharika. They put it at a lower level of reality. It's still accepted and appreciated also. So from an Advaitic perspective, you can do this. So what is the new thing about Swami Vivekananda's extension? Because classical Advaita Vedanta, how it dealt with duality, was very dismissive. I remember in Mandukya Karika, in the commentaries, when Gaudapada says, Advaita Vedanta has no conflict with Dvaita and Vishishta Dvaita. It sounds very liberal. Parasparam Viruddhyante. They have all these philosophies fight against each other. But we Advaitins have no conflict with any philosophy. Tairayam na Virudhyate. Sounds very liberal, but if you see the commentary, you will see in what sense Advaitins say this. Imagine you are going on an elephant. Kerala, Shankaracharya, there are many elephants. So he's going on an elephant. Now a madman is standing on the path and saying that, charge your elephant against my elephant. Let's have an elephant fight. He doesn't have an elephant. How will you have an elephant fight? These philosophies are fictions. They don't exist. How can they contradict us? So that is not going to establish harmony. That is not going to be appreciated by others. This is the way Sri Ramakrishna does it. The Hanuman analogy. That is acceptable. That's a wonderful perspective. So Dvaita, Vishishta Dvaita, Advaita and the other systems of Vedanta philosophy harmonized in this extension of Advaita Vedanta. That's point number 1, what I wanted to say today. Point number 2. The harmony of the yogas. The moment you say that Advaita is right, Vishishta Advaita also is right, Dvaita is also right, from different perspectives, or different levels of spiritual insight, or different spiritual insights, then the sadhana that they recommend, that also must be right. Advaita Vedanta, we saw, what does it do? It takes a very analytical approach into our experience. See your own experience as body-mind. Then we will take you step by step to your own realization. Body-mind is like a cave. Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. Yesterday we saw. But what an analytical, philosophical, vichara approach. Inquiry approach. Vishishtadvaita Vedanta says ultimately it is your relationship to the whole. Part has a relationship to the whole of bhakti. Bhakti will give us moksha. Dvaita Vedanta also says that. Achintya Bheda Ved, Shuddha Dvaita, Dvaita Dvaita. All of them say bhakti will ultimately take us to the highest. Then, can they be wrong? Classical Advaita Vedanta will say, if you are very hardcore classical Advaitin, will say bhakti is not wrong. Bhakti is very good. You as a jiva should have bhakti to Saguna Brahman, to Ishvara, certainly. But you must go from there and realize, I am not a jiva, Saguna Brahman is also not Saguna Brahman, both of us are one unlimited existence consciousness bliss. Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. That realization must come. Until that time, no moksha is possible. Until that time, you are not a jnani. Good. But let's ask a hard question, difficult question. Do you think Mirabai was an ajnani? Do you think that Tulsidas, our Ramanujacharya, was an ajnani? Our Madhvacharya and his followers were ajnanis? No, it's difficult. It's too much to swallow. You reach the highest of bhakti and realized God in that way. God becomes a living reality for you. Is it ajnana? No. What Sri Ramakrishna says is, Tini ananto patu ananto. That reality is infinite and the paths to that reality are also infinite. He loved that example of the elephant and the 5 blind men touching the elephant. So one touches it and says, elephant is like a fan, big fan. He's touching the ear of the elephant. Another one touches the tail of the elephant, says elephant is like a rope. Another one touches the leg of the elephant. Elephant is like a pillar. So on. Are they wrong? No, they are right. But is it the complete truth? No. So, it may be that from a bhakti aspect you see one aspect of the infinite. And from an Advaitic aspect you may see another, maybe deeper aspect of the infinite. But are you not all touching the same elephant, touching the same Brahman? You are. Not that one is wrong and the other one is right. So, by bhakti also one can reach that goal. By jnana, of course, one can reach that goal. That's the royal path. Meditation also one can reach that goal. And karma yoga, which had always been given a subsidiary, lower level sort of kind of practice, preliminary practice, Swami Vivekananda raised it to equality with all the other yogas. So he says, you can do it by karma, by work. You can do it by psychic control, meditation. You can do it by philosophy. By philosophy he means Advaita Vedanta, Advaita Vichara. And you can do it by love. Jnana, bhakti, karma, yoga, by one or more or all of these. And be free, that is the whole of religion. Books, temples, doctrines, churches are secondary details. If you ask a classical Advaitin, so you see the difference. If you ask a classical Advaitin will say, karma yoga is there, it will give you chitta shuddhi. Will it give me moksha? No, no, no. It will give you purity of mind. And that is essential. Bhakti yoga and your dhyana yoga, raja yoga, combine it together, call it upasana. Upasana will give you chitta ekagrata, concentration of mind. Will it give me moksha? No, no, no. With a purified mind, with a concentrated mind, when you come to vichara, shravana, manana, nididhyasana, hearing, reflection, meditation, there will be brahmakara vritti, the arising of the moment of enlightenment, that flash of enlightenment. You will see, ignorance will be dispelled, you will realize, aham brahmasmi, I am Brahman, I am what Brahman? Satyam jnanam anantam brahma, I will realize. So there is a hierarchy. Karma yoga, bhakti yoga, and raja yoga, and then jnana yoga. And jnana yoga alone will lead you to moksha. Classical Advaita Vedanta. But you see classical Vishishta Advaita Vedanta, they will reverse it. First, karma yoga. Poor karma yoga always bottom. First karma yoga. And then jnana yoga. You will realize I am consciousness. Then bhakti yoga, which will connect you to the cosmic consciousness, to the Purnam. Bhakti will give you freedom, not jnana. Swami Bhuteshanji Maharaj, he used to say, somebody asked him once, I was there, one of the senior Swamis asked a question that, Maharaj, isn't it true that Dvaita, Vishishtadvaita and Advaita are three levels, preliminary, first we start with Dvaita, then go to Vishishtadvaita and then go to Advaita Vedanta, this ladder-like sequence, hasn't Swami Vivekananda spoken about it? And his answer, he would speak in this slow drawl, he was like 95, 96 years old, Swami Bhuteshanji Maharaj, 12th president of our order. His answer was, a ladder can always be reversed. You can turn it around and Dvaita will become the highest, Advaita will become the lowest. And it has been done. If you ask our brothers in the Gauriya Vaishnava, in the ISKCON, and if you ask, they will say, we are not denying Advaita Vedanta, but that's the simplest, easiest, most external, lowest form of spirituality, not highest. Why? This Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma, pure consciousness, Chaitanya, which you are saying, it is the Tanubha, the radiance of the body of the beautiful Krishna. You Advaitins are fools. You are approaching Krishna, you see this light, you say, oh, pure consciousness, finished. You go a little further, you will see that little blue boy with a peacock feather and a flute and all. So yes, the ladder can be reversed. Dvaita becomes the highest, Advaita becomes the lowest. So, all the four yogas, my point was, all of these systems, they have their sadhana. Some stress jnana, some stress bhakti. Swami Vivekananda, he says that by any one of these, or by a combination, and he particularly recommended a harmony of all four. He says each of them have their problems and defects. And jnana yoga can often degenerate into intellectualism. I've read this book, I know these arguments, I can beat you in any argument, and I am an enlightened person. No, no, no. Bhakti yoga can often be emotionalism. Name of Krishna, I start crying. So very enlightened? No, not at all. It's just weak nerves. Then Dhyana Yoga can often degenerate into selfishness and experience chasing. I saw light, I heard sound, and so on and so forth. I've met so many people, especially in the West. One gentleman, he came when I went to Hollywood. So this American gentleman, very nice, sincere man. He said he wanted to tell me, and these people you will often find, they're very eager to tell you their spiritual experiences. So he wanted to tell me about the experience of awakening of Kundalini. He said, Swami, I sat down in meditation, and from the Muladhara chakra, I suddenly felt, boom! I said, what happened? The chakra has opened, and then the Kundalini is rising, and then Swadhisthana, boom! I said, 7 chakras are there, how many booms will come? So, I was a little shaken, I was new there. I thought maybe, I don't know how to deal with this. And then I told our revered Swami Sarvapriyananda, who's our head of there, who's been there for many, many years. And then he told me, in Bengali I will translate, he said, Tumi bhoy peo na, erokom onek pagol ache ekhane. Don't be afraid, don't feel afraid. There are many such crazy people here, going boom all the time. So these dhyana yoga, meditation techniques can often lead to this kind of problem. And karma yoga by itself can often lead to I'm doing good work, busyness, active. After all, schools, colleges, hospitals, you're good work. Nobody is going to criticize you for that. But then it can just be social work. It may not be particularly spiritual. So all of them, Swami Vivekananda says, all 4 yogas have their drawback. But if you combine them, harmonize them, if you have all of these components in your life, which in our order we try to do, then it is a safe and wholesome process. But also see, Naradiya Bhakti Sutra, Patanjali Yoga Sutra. If you go there, if you look at the text, does Narada say, this is preliminary, please read this Bhakti Sutra, then have devotion to God. After this, please go to Taittiriya Upanishad and realize Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. No. It's a complete system. Patanjali Yoga Sutra. Does he say, please practice Ashtanga Yoga, you will get concentration, then go to YouTube lecture of Advaita Vedanta? No. It's a complete system. So, Swami Vivekananda is saying, let's recognize the fact as it is, that all of these paths can lead you, can take us, the blind men, and touch the elephant. Yeah. So, the harmony of the 4 yogas, this is an extension. Classical Advaita Vedanta, every time I'm showing you what is the extension. Classical Advaita Vedanta will say karma, bhakti, dhyana, all are good, necessary, but they are preliminary. Jnana alone will give you moksha. And this is, at no point does Vivekananda contradict classical Advaita Vedanta. He says, that's all right. If you follow that, will you become enlightened? Certainly you'll become enlightened. Certainly. That's the royal road, direct path. But all the other paths also work. And it's not wrong to say that bhakti can give you enlightenment. I know of people, by repetition of the Ishta mantra, devotion to Ishta Devata, they have got Advaitic realization. Sri Ramakrishna himself says that about Swami Premananda. Tor darshan hobe na tor gyan hobe, tor bhav hobe na tor gyan hobe. Swami Premananda, you will get jnana, Advaitic jnana. We have heard, some of you seniors here must have seen, certainly the Swamijis have seen, Abhayanandaji, Bharat Maharaj. He was a strict non-dualist, seems to be. And he was the head of the monastery in Belur, which is pretty ritualistic and devotional. Sri Ramakrishna's temple, Ma Sharada's temple is there, Swami Vivekananda's temple, and so on. I've heard, you can tell the truth, I mean, you can say, you have seen, that Maharaj, as the head of the monastery, he would go to the temple only to look at the maintenance. He will walk around there, take a look, everything is all right, and come back. Strict Advaitin. So by all these paths, one can realize Brahman. And by combination of these paths, one can realize Brahman. Definitely. Third, let's go further. Let's take this to the field of all religions. This is a central teaching, important teaching of Sri Ramakrishna in this day and age. Jato mat tatopat, the harmony of religions. Not only Dvaita Vishishta Dvaita, but also 4 yogas, Jnana Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Raja Yoga, Karma Yoga, but also the different religions of the world. It's not that one is true and the others are false. It's a message that is unfortunately still relevant today. We still are fighting in the name of religion. Not so much here. More in the West, people are surprised in these advanced countries. This idea that if one is right, then the others must be wrong. See, America is a very interesting case. There's tremendous religious freedom there. And it came because in the founding of America, one important reason was these different Protestant denominations were being persecuted in Europe. So they escaped to America and set up the new society. And from the very beginning, they said there must be freedom of religion. So America has hundreds of churches, each independent. So not just one, not two, hundreds of churches. So isn't that freedom of religion? There's a very big difference between that and what we have here. We also have freedom, complete freedom of religion since ancient times. But what we have here and what they have is very different. What they have in America is, though these churches rebelled against the Catholic Church, the Vatican, and they broke away from it, and there are various denominations of Protestants, many denominations. But what they don't know, from a neutral observer, from a distant observer, to my eyes, they have become like little Vaticans, each of them. They still have the same model. I am right, you are wrong. I asked one of our senior Swamijis, an American gentleman, he became a monk of our order, very senior. I asked him, how did you become a monk? He said, I grew up in what is now called the Bible Belt in the United States, very staunch Christians. I noticed as a child, every church said that every other church across the street is wrong. We are right. Every little church says, we are right and we alone will go to heaven. All those others will burn in hell. Then I came to the conclusion, I think then they are all wrong. That Swami told me as a young boy. It's many years later, traveling in Europe, I came across a book, Vedanta for the Western World, which said to me, it's not that one is right and others are wrong. It's not even that all are wrong. It's actually all are right. He said, I always felt this was true, but I the first time saw a teaching which says all are right. All the religions of the world are different expressions of the same truth. We Indians have this kind of religious freedom. It's not that we permit varieties of sects which we have, and each sect will say we are right and everybody else is totally wrong. No. Ekam sat vipra bahuda vadanti. It's something which is inherent in the very blood of our nation. You don't need to know Sanskrit. You don't need to have read the Rig Veda. Even an illiterate person in the village also knows that Bhagavan is of different types and different forms and names. Here is a Shiva temple, there is a Narayana temple, there is a Devi temple, and the same thing. And by extension, it is very easy for the Indian to say, if the Hindu to say, the Buddhist is right, the Jaina is also right, the Sikh is also right, and for all of us, Buddhists, Jains, Sikhs, Hindus, to say that the Christian is also right, and the Muslim is also right. Because if we have so much variety within our religion, one more variety, koi baat nahi. I heard in America, Southern Baptist Church, very staunch Christians, and they pour a lot of money into converting Hindus here. And so this gentleman is giving a talk. He's a missionary. He's training young missionaries. He's saying India is a unique case. All other places in Africa, other places, you have to convince them that our religion is right, everything, that Jesus is the way. If you go to India and say Jesus is the way, they will say, yes, right, correct. What Indians will not accept is that Jesus is the only way, everything else is false. They will not accept. That's what he was trying to say. Now see how it has gone into the very lifeblood of our nation. Now what was implicit in Hinduism, what is an extension of Advaita Vedanta? Sri Ramakrishna comes in this day and age, makes it explicit. A central teaching, Sri Ramakrishna, Masharada, Swami Vivekananda, and which comes out of the milieu of Hinduism. I say that this could have only come from Hinduism, not from other traditions. Swami Vivekananda, Sri Ramakrishna, Masharada would not have been tolerated in many other traditions. They say that all religions are true. The God is infinite, paths to God are also infinite. God is infinite. Sri Ramakrishna says, just like an ant sees a mountain of sugar and takes one grain with great difficulty and takes it to its hole and looks back, I'll take the whole mountain, I'm coming back. Not necessary and cannot take it also. One grain of sugar is enough to fill its belly. Similarly, God is like this infinite, is this huge mountain of sugar. We are like little ants. We take one grain out of it and we think that itself is all. No, infinite. And these different religions, what are they? They are not truths in themselves. They are paths to the truth. How many paths can there be? Paths can be many. Truths may not be many. Truth is one ultimate reality. But because it's infinite, you can approach it in different paths. And the paths are different. Nobody's saying the paths are same. The religions of the world are different paths to it. Sri Ramakrishna is to give the example. Brahmo devotees have come to meet him. And he says, some of you have crossed the bridge. Some of you have come by boat. Some of you walked here. In the end, you all came to Dakshineshwar. You have come here. Similarly, he says, the Vaishnavas will attain God. The Brahmos will attain to realization. So will the Musalmans and the Christians. Do not fight in the name of religion. It is so very necessary. I cannot tell you how much necessary it is. I am coming from New York. There, 9/11 has only one meaning. For us in Ramakrishna Vivekananda tradition, 9/11, 1893, Swami Vivekananda, 11th September, he gave his talk in the World Parliament of Religions. That's important for us. But in New York, it has one meaning only. 9/11, in the name of religion, so much destruction and devastation, setting off a war which just sort of ended only last year with the withdrawal from Afghanistan. Now the message that one religion alone cannot be true, that all the others are false, no. I was surprised at Harvard University studying Divinity School, definition of universal religion. What is the definition of universal religion? So Christianity and Islam, Buddhism, these are universal religions because everybody can come and become a Christian or a Muslim. And Hinduism, Judaism, Zoroastrianism, these are not universal, they are ethnic, limited to certain cultures. But what kind of universalism is it when I say only this path is correct and everything else is wrong, please come and join my path by a hook or crook? It's not universalism. It's a kind of fanaticism. It's a kind of arrogance. So, all paths lead to that same reality, and jato mat tato path. A rabbi, a good friend of mine, he came to Belur Math from Jerusalem, and he said, you all speak Ramakrishna mission, harmony of religion, Hinduism is a harmony of religion. Where are the seminars, workshops, paper publication, declarations from different organizations? I said, I thought so, that's true. But then I realized we don't need it. We don't need it. All of us are already convinced about the harmony of religions. You need it. You're fighting against each other. Robert Wright, who is a neo-Darwinian, he writes about evolutionary biology, but also has written about religion, evolution of God. He lives in Princeton. He talks about the violence between Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. Then at the end of the book, he says, what is the prospect for peace? And then he mentions the ancient Hindus discovered this formula, Ekam Sat Vipra Bahuda Vadanti. If only the religions of the world accept this, then there is some possibility for peace between the world religions. So this is another extension. One and the many are the same reality, then that reality, infinite reality, you are approaching through different paths. The paths are all correct. They are all valid. There's absolutely no need to quarrel among each other. You must hold on to one path and go towards it. That's called Ishta-nishtha. Hold on to one. Sri Ramakrishna says if you dig a well in different places trying to get water, you won't get water. If you try to dig deep enough in one place, you will get water. So Sri Ramakrishna says all are right, but you must follow something sincerely for some period of time. So, harmony of religions. Religion and science. Swami Vivekananda was very interested in science. Monk, very interested in science. You know that on the way to the United States, in the ship, he met Tata. And he inspired Tata. See, a monk is telling a businessman, a Parsi businessman, that you must, he talked about industry and fundamental research in science, which led to the establishment of the Indian Institute of Science. It used to be called, that even now, the auto wallas in Bangalore, they call it Tata Institute. And there's a letter from Jamshedji to Swami Vivekananda, which says that you told me on the ship, and I'm struck, possessed by this idea, and I want to establish this. I want you to become the first director. Of course, Swami Vivekananda did not become, even Jamshedji did not live to see that institute. It was Sister Nivedita who was like one of the driving forces behind the establishment of that institute. British government, when they approached, British government said the natives don't need science. Indians, why do they need science? It's just enough, little bit of mechanical training is enough to carry on the work. Research, scientific research is for white people. So, science and religion. When Swami Vivekananda went to the United States, World Parliament of Religions, who comes to his lectures? Tesla, the scientist, not the car. Nowadays, at least thanks to Elon Musk, people recognize the name of Tesla. They had forgotten the name of Nikola Tesla. And that Tesla was there in that exposition, the science exposition. Edison was there. Edison was there. Later, there's an interesting discussion. There's a mention of Edison by Swami Abhedanandaji. In his diaries, he writes, so I went to meet this famous inventor who showed me around his laboratory. Who was that inventor? Edison. Edison gave him one of the earliest gramophones, which is, I heard it's still preserved in the Ramakrishna Vedanta Mutt in Calcutta. Anyway, Edison used to come and listen to Swami Vivekananda's talks. And then they set up a correspondence. Edison wanted to know about the theories, cosmological theories of Sankhya. And Swami Vivekananda was very interested to see if science and religion can meet. If the advanced theories of modern physics and cosmology would point in the same direction as what Sankhya and Vaisheshika and all had done in the ancient times. It was not possible at that level of development, but maybe now more and more. At Harvard, I attended a talk by Brian Greene. He is a world-renowned cosmologist at Columbia University. So he said his elder brother is a monk, Hindu monk. And they often had arguments. His elder brother would say, all that you are doing, it was there in these scriptures, ancient texts of the Hindus. In cosmology, it's all there. And I would argue against that. So I asked him, so what's your view? And he said that what they say, your Upanishads and Vedas, it is not science, but it is a poetic rendition of the same truth, which is very beautifully put. There's a parallel. This is one of the leading cosmologists of the world today saying that it's not science. Sometimes we go overboard that all your string theory is there in our Sankhya, and no, you shouldn't do that. But the insights are there. I don't understand quantum mechanics and all, but many people have said what quantum mechanics is trying to say has a lot of resonance with Advaita Vedanta. Not only that, the new question of the hard problem of consciousness. This is where modern consciousness studies is coming pretty close to Advaita Vedanta and Sankhya. David Chalmers, who coined the term hard problem of consciousness, his latest book, Reality Plus, there I saw he has mentioned, at least for the first time, they're mentioning Sankhya, Advaita Vedanta, and they're very interested in Buddhism, of course. So the insights of the ancient wisdom of India, Buddhism, Jain theories of consciousness, then Jain logic, multivalued logic, then Advaita and Sankhyan theories of consciousness, they are now being studied seriously for the first time to provide answers to the hard problem of consciousness. In NYU, New York University, which has probably the best philosophy department, Western philosophy department in the whole world, there, and they don't even teach Indian philosophy. They don't teach Indian philosophy. There, I attended a colloquium, discussion. What was the subject? Advaita Vedanta perspective of the hard problem of consciousness. So were they convinced? No, they are tough customers. It's not easy to convince. At least the opening has been made. The development is there, that people are interested in it. Science and religion, this question, I'm not saying they're coming together, but they seem to be on parallel tracks, pointing towards the same reality. What would a classical Advaitin say about this? I can actually tell you. One physicist, he went to a contemporary master of classical Advaita Vedanta. This is about 20 years back, and that master has passed now. He went and met this master of Advaita Vedanta, and this master said to him, "What do you do?" "Sir, Swamiji, I am a physicist." "Oh, physics, that's Maya. Forget it. Come here, I will show you the truth." Now this physicist was very hurt. Now from a classical Advaitic perspective, he's right, and I sympathize with that Swami. I would also say that, but there is a different way of dealing with this. Swami Vivekananda would never say that. He would be interested in the approach from physics perspective to reality, because physics is also a search for reality. Advaita Vedanta is also a search for reality. If one and the many are the same reality, that Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma is also this universe, which is studied by physics. One mathematician, he corrected my view. I said, see, from a traditional Advaitic perspective, this mathematics, physics and all, they are all in this Vyavaharika plane. They can't take you to the highest reality. He said, where is your Advaita Vedanta? In your Vyavaharika plane or in a Paramarthika plane? Your Advaita Vedanta is also in this Vyavaharika plane. Here only. From here you are trying to access the highest reality. If from this level you can access the highest reality through Advaita Vedanta, from this level, why can you not access the highest reality through physics? Through mathematics? Why not? And Swami Vivekananda has actually said this. Sister Nivedita says, Swami Vivekananda told us, art, science and religion are three ways of reaching the same truth, but you need Advaita to understand this. Cryptic statement, but very profound statement. Art, science and religion can all take you to the same realization, but you need an Advaitic perspective to understand this. We are talking about Maya. I was struck by Rebecca Goldstein has written this nice book on Gödel. You know, Gödel was one of the greatest mathematicians of the maybe the greatest mathematician of the 20th century. So she introduces the subject by saying, notice the greatest discoveries of science in the 20th century. Greatest discoveries. Your Einstein's relativity, then Heisenberg's uncertainties, Heisenberg's uncertainty, right? Uncertainty, Heisenberg. And Gödel's incompleteness. See, if you had asked scientists in the 19th century, what do you expect for science in the 20th century? They would not have said relativity. They would have said absoluteness. Absolute truth we will find. Mathematicians would not have said incompleteness. We will complete the system of mathematics in 20th century. Not uncertainty, but certainty. 19th century, they expected that. But what was the discovery? Uncertainty, relativity, incompleteness. This uncertainty, relativity, incompleteness is the other terms for Maya. It's just the, I'm not saying it's exactly the same, but look at the terms themselves. So, science and religion, harmonizing science and religion, this approach, it comes from the extension, one and the many are the same reality. Then, a couple of other points and I'll wrap up. Ethics. What is right and what is wrong? It's a big issue in philosophy. It's till now debated. There's teleological theories, utilitarian theories, deontological theories, so many theories. I will not go into the details. I attended Professor Amartya Sen's class on ethics at Harvard University. So all the different theories of ethics. And the basic struggle is to answer the question, why should I be good? Why should I not cheat another person or hurt another person if it is to my advantage? And all these theories struggle to answer it. And they all fail. They have all weaknesses. Swami Vivekananda gives the answer, because one and the many are the same reality. That one is appearing as these many. We all are that one. So what is appearing as many, we are all one actually. If I hurt another person, I'm actually hurting myself at a very deep level. Ethics is based on oneness. There is one thing common to all the religions of the world. It's called the golden rule. That you should treat others as you want others to treat you. All the religions have it in some form or other. The Gita itself, Atmaupamyena sarvatra, Yo pashyati Arjuna, sukham va yadi va dukkham. So, samam yo pashyati Arjuna, who sees the sameness everywhere, like oneself. As it is hurtful to me, it is hurtful to that person also. As it is joyful to me, it is joyful to that person also. If I am trying to get joy and remove my pain, I should also try to get joy for the other person and remove the pain of the other person. This golden rule, in New York, the United Nations building is the headquarters. If you go third floor, big stone block, this is inscribed, the golden rule of all religions. But how? What is the basis of this golden rule? It is the oneness which Advaita Vedanta teaches you. Why should I treat other person as I would have them treat me? Because that other person and I are one reality. So ethics based on oneness. Our revered Swami Bhajananji Maharaj has written a remarkable essay on this. Swami Vivekananda's Ontological Ethics. It's an essay, about 20 pages, where he surveys all the theories of ethics and shows their defects, and then gives Swami Vivekananda's theory about 10 points and shows how it answers the fundamental questions of philosophy of ethics. Masterful essay. Swami Vivekananda's Ontological Ethics. Then one more point. When Swami Vivekananda, Narendranath Datta heard Sri Ramakrishna say, not compassion for the jiva, Shiva Jnane Jiva Seva. As a new light dawned on him. That if one and the many are the same reality, then the many must be that Shiva. Shiva alone is appearing as Jiva, including the sick Jiva, including the poor Jiva, including the uneducated, illiterate, the suffering Jiva. That also is Shiva. Then how do you relate to them? If Brahman alone, Shiva alone is appearing in all these ways, the poor man you relate by economic aid. The illiterate person you relate there, you worship Shiva there by education. The hungry Jiva, you worship Shiva in that by giving food. What was seen as social service till now, it becomes spiritual practice. It becomes the worship of God. Not only with candles and lamps and flowers and chanting of mantra, but also by education, by medical service, by economic aid. In all these ways, we worship Shiva alone. The work done by the Ramakrishna order, by the Sharda Math and all the institutions inspired by Vivekananda, Sri Ramakrishna and Ma Sharada, it's not social work. It's spiritual practice. The same practice which is done as japa there in the temple, the same practice which is done as lecturing here and listening to a talk is done in the dispensary, in the hospital, in the school, in value education. It's same spiritual practice. What a grand philosophy. Spirit service becomes spiritual practice. It becomes a philosophy of life. Seva is based on one and the many are the same reality. Can you not do seva in classical Advaita Vedanta? You can. But that's a preliminary purificatory practice. Chitta Shuddhi, it will, as I said, Karma Yoga always is pushed down. Preliminary. Swami Ashokananda ji in San Francisco, he writes to an American disciple. He says, I know what you are thinking. When I tell you to do Karma Yoga, you are thinking, Swami thinks I am not advanced enough to do meditation. That's why he's telling me to do Karma Yoga. I will show him. And then Ashokanji writes, well, you will show me, but not in the way you think. That means you will fail to do meditation, and by that itself you will show me the importance of Karma Yoga. So Karma Yoga is elevated to the highest level of spirituality as Seva, as Shiva Jnane Jiva Seva. One last point, and I'll finish. Sister Nivedita says, henceforth, if one and the many are the same reality, henceforth, no division between secular and spiritual. It is a spiritualization of the secular, not religious. It's not that one religion, theological dictatorship. No, not like that. Whatever your religion, you spiritualize the whole of life. See, we divide life into spiritual and secular. I'll come to Ramakrishna Mission, listen to Vedanta talk, spiritual. Then I'll go and watch a TV program or go and do my homework or office work, secular. All of it is spiritual. We can spiritualize the whole of life. Otherwise, you see, what happens is, spiritual life will lose. The demands of secular life are so much. Most of our time and energy in the world is taken up by job, by family, by all the demands of life. How much is left over for spiritual life? How much is left over for meditation? People will always complain. We sit down for meditation, very difficult. Mind is going here and there, very difficult to concentrate. Typical question in everywhere. But what Swami Vivekananda said, if you see the divinity everywhere, where will your mind go? Where your mind goes, there itself Brahman is there. Yatra yatra mano yati, tatra tatra samadhaya. Wherever the mind goes means whatever the mind thinks about, there itself you can have samadhi. Swami Ashokanji writes, where can I see God? Foolish question. Where can you not see God? This is the great extension of Advaita, classical Advaita Vedanta, done thanks to Swami Vivekananda. Spiritualization of the whole of life. To labor is as good as praying, Sister Nivedita says. To have and hold is as sacred a trust as to quit and renounce. If you are a householder, maintaining and developing a family, you are in a career, organization you are serving and developing, that's as great. You can spiritualize it. Not automatic, but you can spiritualize it. It's as good as a monk sitting in Gangotri and meditating. You can have the same spiritual experience. Spirituality covers the whole of life. The spiritualization of all of life is the direct implication of one and the many are the same reality. Brahman and Shakti are the same thing. That one which is Nitya, it is the Leela of the same one. So this Vijnana concept, this is the extension that Swami Vivekananda brought, what he did with classical Advaita Vedanta. I think I'll complete here. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat Shri Ram Krishna Arpanamastu. We can have a few short question answers, like yes. 10 minutes or so. All right. The gentleman there. Yes. Tell us your name and ask a question. The microphone is just next to you. Right there. Yes.
My question is, can we realize Brahma without entering into super spiritual level or Samadhi state?
Okay. Can we realize Brahman without entering into Samadhi state? All right. This has always been a little sticky with me. My answer will be yes. But it's a technical yes. See, Brahmakara Vritti, the breakthrough which is like I am Brahman, this realization, it can come through the cultivation of meditative states which culminate in Samadhi, you can get it. It can come straight through bhakti also. Intense devotion, you can get it by the grace of God. It can come through the vichara which we did. So Swami Bhuteshanji was asked, can one attain Brahmajnana without Nirvikalpa Samadhi? He said, yes, one can. That is the conclusion of traditional, classical Advaita Vedanta. But in this path, which we are talking about, Swami Vivekananda's extension of Advaita Vedanta, he has given great emphasis on meditation and Samadhi also. Sri Ramakrishna also says in one place, Samadhi na hole thik thik hoy na. Right? By inquiry, you can realize this is a movie, behind the movie there is a screen. But, if you switch off the movie and see the screen for a while, it becomes even more clear. All right. Someone from this side? There's a lady there wearing the mask right there. Yes. Please stand up and ask the question. Please take the microphone. Yes. No, you speak into the microphone. You can take off your mask and speak in the microphone. You have two masks.
My name is Shamoli. I teach at the University of Delhi. I'm a psychologist. My question is...
Speak into the microphone, yeah.
Yeah. So, currently I'm training in mindfulness-based psychotherapist.
Yes.
Also because there is no evidence-based psychotherapy that is based on Vedanta. I'm finding it difficult to reconcile the two. And you just mentioned really how there's a harmony of all of us.
Yes.
Still, I want to listen from you.
So,
there's one more question.
Yeah.
So, in the light of all that we have discussed over the past few days, I would want to know from you, what is it that you mean when you say that the goal of life is fulfillment and not happiness?
The whole of life?
The goal of life
Goal of
is fulfillment and not happiness.
I did not, fulfillment and not happiness. Did I ever say that?
It's there in the YouTube talk.
Okay. Right. All right. All right. Thank you. Good questions. The first one is especially important. I've heard this from another psychotherapist. So we already have taken mindfulness meditation and developed protocols for treatment, mindfulness-based therapies. We don't have Vedanta-based therapies yet, and we can have. Actually, this is a place where a lot of work can be done. What you can do is combine some of the same protocols which have been developed for mindfulness-based therapy together with, there is a new movement now for using insights from philosophy for therapy. The books like What Would Aristotle Do? Like that. So, applying the insights of ancient philosophers to solve modern day life problems. It's a bit like cognitive behavior therapy, CBT, where we ask the client to use their reasoning, their cognitive resources, especially intellectual resources, to understand the problem, analyze it, and come up with a solution. Advaita Vedanta can be brought in that way. Actually, a psychotherapist once asked me, and this is a new field. Once, one of the toughest audiences I've faced in the world was a group of psychiatrists. So all day long they're dealing with mental illness. So they understand the mind very well. You see, when a machine is broken and you try to repair it, you understand the machine very well. So a group of psychiatrists called me. I think good case study for them. And I was asked to talk about Vedanta. Their questions were the sharpest that I have come across. Yes, so Advaita Vedanta based therapy is lacking, but it's a potential, it's a wonderful field for future development, and the two things that can be combined there is meditation like the mindfulness-based therapy plus the Advaitic inquiry, which is a bit like the cognitive behavior therapy, CBT. The second part of it, fulfillment, not happiness. See, one reason is this. I read, for example, Sean Carroll, this is a physicist from Caltech. He has this book, The Big Picture. He says, see, I don't agree with these people saying happiness is the goal of life. I will pursue my investigation into cosmology, Big Bang. That may make me unhappy also, but I will pursue that. That is my goal, to know the source of the universe, even if it makes me unhappy. So happiness is not the goal of life. It's a very trivial and foolish observation. The same scientist can be asked, suppose you find answers to your investigation. Will that make you happy or unhappy? It will make you happy. See, what he thinks as happiness is what we call a pleasure. It may not be pleasure, which is fulfillment. So you work very hard to establish a business. It's not pleasurable, but it is fulfilling. That fulfillment is what I meant by happiness. So there I think happiness and pleasure, I used it in that sense. Okay, this gentleman here in the blue shirt. And then we'll go to the back, the blue mask, straight at the back. There's, yes, we'll go there next.
My name is Advaita. Actually, I am doing job. I am in public sector. A problem that we face in our daily job life is that people compromise a lot for career aspirations with the ethics. They compromise a lot with the ethics for career aspirations. And not only departments and institutions, but the nation suffers at large because of this thing. And today we discussed about ethics and Vedanta. Can Vedanta address this problem and give some solutions?
Certainly, it can. It can. Ethics is born of oneness, according to Vedanta. So that which benefits the country, benefits the company, benefits the department, benefits the individual. We have to see in that perspective. Principles we can give, but when you apply it, please sit. You have to apply it intelligently. Many people, they make a mess of things by saying, I am ethical, everybody else here is unethical. You are heading for disaster. So you'll become like a pariah very soon. Nobody will want to work with you. So it's best to have people on your side. and show how this ethical practice can actually benefit ultimately. May not be immediately. It can benefit the whole company, how it can add to the CSR, how it can add to the image of the company. I've seen many such case studies where how intelligently a person has applied ethics in personal life, in department, in the organization, and has come out ahead and has been praised for it. Sometimes it may not be possible. You just have to stand for the ethics. It may not go together, success and ethics. But from a spiritual perspective, one must take a stand on ethics. The gentleman there, yes, please stand up.
Namaskar. I'm Suresh. Firstly, Maharaj, I'm blessed to share this time and space with you on this planet. It almost stood still on this screen. And my point is, I've been listening a lot of things, Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Raja Yoga, Advaita, a lot of things. But I want one thing, you can tell us one thing, if you would start right now, with
Yes.
100% effort, so that we could gain something out of it, and then we would get along step.
Swami Brahmananda used to say, if you ask Swami Brahmananda, I was reading, he says, Jap kar dekhi, do intense japa throughout your day, through the work. When the work is going on, let a part of your mind remain with japa. When the work is over, hold on to the japa. It's not easy. And say, tell me one thing, I will do it. Try it, you won't be able to do it, mostly. Then you will realize how difficult it is. Then we need other things also. Right? So one thing is, if you want to do one thing only, take mantra diksha, hold on to the japa, it will take you to God realization. It will. But then as you try hard, train, don't strain, you will see you need other supports also. Swami Turiyanandaji, when he did tapasya in the Himalayas, job, dhyan, part, dhyan, job. Japa, meditation, dhyana, and study. Study, meditation, and japa. He would rotate through the day continuously. At times he forgot to sleep also. 4 yogas. Somebody said, can you tell us in one word each yoga? I said, not one word, but I can show you what it means. Each yoga, karma yoga, is selfless, not selfish. That's karma yoga. Bhakti yoga, love of God, love, not desire. That's bhakti yoga. Raja yoga is focus, not distraction. And jnana yoga, knowledge of self, not knowledge of other. These 4 also you can take. Good. Should we wrap up now? All right. So thank you very much. And definitely Maharaj will arrange for future circumstances also. Yes.
Let's close with prayer to Mother. Ithagner dahika shakti Rama Krishna sitahiya Sarvavidya Swarupam Tam Sharadam Pranamamiham. Because before coming to the, I won't take much time, you can rest assured. When he was talking about Bharat Maharaj, he would come every year, no? Durga Puja is being organized, the image used to be in the temple. So naturally as manager he would come with his lati, and then he'll go back. No offering of pranam or anything with it, but he'll come to see whether the image is hoisted properly, everything is there. With lati, you'll see. And regarding the other thing, those kind of people are not there plenty, much more in India than in America. A few days back also someone came. For the last 1.5, 2 years, every day he is getting 1.5 hours Nirvikalpa Samadhi. So he wanted to ask me whether it is, why you have come, it's okay, very fine. No, I want to know whether it is correct. See, that's the problem. If it is true, you would not have come to ask me. Something is good, but don't assume that it's all not, it doesn't happen that. Anyway, we are extremely, extremely grateful to Sarvapriyananda for coming and pouring his heart out in this ashrama, this auditorium. I think we have also got a very wonderful audience with such important valid questions, pointed questions, relevant questions. So I thank all of you also. Of course, the Matajis from Shardam Mutt. So it has been an extraordinary 3 days. Of course, as we always say, Thakur always used to say, most important is to practice sadhana. A lot more. Maharaj, in one sense, he has been too kind and too liberal, I would say, if I were to say very strictly about Maharaj. He has made Advaita so easy. So, wonderful, it's easy, but then we need to practice quite a bit to get to something like that. Now, as Maharaj said that now, Maharaj more or less agreed that every time you would come to India, he would go via Delhi and he would give a talk, no doubt. More than that, just as we are developing a very good retreat center a little away from Rishikesh. It's a very beautiful place. Now the land has been purchased. Probably in a year's time it will be ready. If all of you agree, we can have a 5-day Vedanta retreat with Maharaj and we can inaugurate that facility. Yeah. But of course, 5-day Vedanta retreat would come with a cost because you have to bear Maharaj's travel expense also. We'll all together will raise it. It will be only for a very limited, because the place would have only 50, accommodation of 50, not a seat more. But it will be very comfortable. Facilities will be there. We're trying. I mean, it's a quite a way off because we have to raise money and so on. But at least the first step, the location of the land was a humongous task. I myself went 6 times to Rishikesh. So it has been done now, so slowly we can start the work. So we are extremely grateful to Sarvapriyananda for these wonderful talks. I'm sure he would be with us at least every year once. Thank you very much. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat. Sri Ram Krishna Arpanamastu. So many of you wanted to do pranam. Maharaj will come to the edge of the stage. But please maintain, discipline. Don't rush. All of you will get a chance. So you can do pranam and leave the hall. Thank you.